So thank you so much for all honoring the invitation. This is Team Talk Run Run. So much. Sam is with us, and he is. Let me check my notes so that I do not mispronounce where he works and everything. Sam is with Gold.com, Africa Women's Football Writer. He's also the NFF Women's Football Committee member and also the editor of 7news.com. While also we have Lydia, who is the deputy director at Tuks Sport. Thank you so much. So importantly, it has been a very busy couple of weeks in terms of the girls, especially South African girls, getting international contracts and whatnot. So let me start with you, Sam. Where do we put this on? Is it solely on the participation of South Africa in the World Cup, or is there any other factors as well that we're seeing such a great movement in terms of the international transfers?
Yeah, for a player to gain such an opportunity, get security contracts abroad, I think it has more to do with how visible and how competitive the player has been over the years. And I think one thing that has stand out for Nigeria has been such the fact that we've been involved in various competitions, and majorly these competitions has also been screened. Being screened and also viewed in major countries, top countries in the world, where women's football has really thrived very well, most prominently in the Central Europe, where the likes of Norway, Sweden, and until recently Spain, where now they're beginning to embrace women's football and at least securing a lot of foreign players, especially from Africa and also across the world. So it's been a great, huge opportunity and platform, especially when you're involved in competitions, major competitions where you could be easily seen. The Nations Cup, which is our easily accessible competition in Africa, the African Women's Cup of Nations, and most recently, the COSAFA Championship, the regional competition, COSAFA, WAFU, and the UNIF, A and B. So quite a number of those competitions, the regional, has also been key, because I could also say I've been looking at various players that have also left various regions, and I could easily say a lot of them and a lot of videos I've also seen has been from the COSAFA regional tournaments. The regional tournament, I may say, not just COSAFA, the UNIF, players from Morocco, also from Africa, from West Africa, where we have the WAFU tournament. And the players too, who has also played probably one time or the other in the SECAFA Challenge Cup, Women's Cup. So, most of these competitions has been very key. And, that's also part of the leading clamor for more competition to be in place, especially at the regional level and also at the youth level, for more girls to be involved. And at least that would definitely increase the competitive level of the players. That will also bring them to the fore, bring them to the spotlight, and allow them being seen. Like we've seen the likes who are not privileged to play at the World Cup. That's either the under-17 or the U17 or the U20 level. And at such level, you are really so prepared for what you are going to expect at the international level. So that lack of exposure don't really see much players come to the limelight at such level, with the likes of Asisa Dushola, who has really took advantage of those stages to hog the pages of the world headlines. So I think it's practically major competition, and also the quality of agents too, you also align with, because some of these things are key, but I believe is some other issues we get to come to. But I believe most importantly, it is how much we've been seen, and it's part of what has limited us in Africa. I must tell you, when you have so much players to recommend, you really don't have that visible opportunity. That's content, about that player to put out, video content, I must say visuals and what have you, to tell the story of what quality these players possess. Tell me, if we never had possibly a COSAFA tournament, we never had let's just look away from the AFCON. Big competitions like the regional competitions, probably we will not have been able to see the likes of Tabitha Chawinga. We will not have been able to see the likes of Katlana. So just before the Nations Cup. So, you know, like you also know, Tabitha really didn't do well before moving at the Nations Cup level, before moving to hosting. So most definitely, the COSAFA played a huge role in her movement. So all these things are key. Having an agent is one thing, a good agent is one thing. Another thing is you also being good enough to earn a deal, because clubs in Europe who possibly from various platforms check you out either on YouTube or on Instats, you know, want to see some good quality of you. And outside seeing a 2-3 minute video of you, they will also be keen to see a full match, because you are competing against players from other continents who they feel, well, we've seen so much of this girl, so definitely we must be able to tell she's a good player. So, you know, so particularly those short videos we do really don't sometimes help. But when they see you in major tournaments and the qualifiers, it definitely has a lot of impact in the movement of these girls from all Africa, not just South Africa or Nigeria.
Let's welcome Busi has joined the conversation. Lydia, just to get to you, I mean, practically right now we have a South African 11 overseas. If you're counting the number of the girls that were announced in the last couple of weeks and those that were already overseas, the Lindas, you know, Tembis as well, it's practically a South African 11 overseas and a couple of subs as well. For you, somebody who has played for the national team and managed it in a time where there weren't such movements as well, what does this then mean about the growth of the game in South Africa?
Look, it's really encouraging to see so many players getting the opportunity to play abroad. Obviously, it means that the foundation that we as former players laid, you know, is bearing fruit. You know, I'm really excited for the players, because these are the kind of things that we wanted when we were players. You know, we dreamt of playing overseas, watching some of the matches, you know, online and stuff, but we never got those contracts because, like Sam is saying, you know, it's about exposure. Banyana Banyana never really qualified for the World Cup. There were 2 spots available for the World Cup, and it was always Ghana and Nigeria getting those spots. You know, we know that Cameroon only came forward, you know, in 2015 going forward, but it was always Ghana, Cameroon, you know, Ghana and Nigeria qualifying for those, hence why you had most of their players playing abroad. But now, you know, with Banyana Banyana, you know, qualifying for France, you know, it really opened up many doors. You know, I always said to people, you know, for me, Olympics was as much as we were performing on the Olympics, I felt like Olympics was a level lower than the World Cup. You know, I felt like the real step was for Banyana Banyana to get to the FIFA World Cup, where all eyes, people stop what they're doing. They want to see women's football. That's their quality. That's the creme de la creme. You know, everyone wants to see that. And, you know, seeing them getting there, although the results were not as pleasing as we expected, you know, it was exposure for them. You know, the people got to see what South Africans are capable of. Yes, we don't have the kind of physique that your Nigerians have, your Ghanaians, your West Africans have. But, you know, when it comes to skill, you know, the South Africans got to the chance to show the skillful players that they are, you know, and the speed as well, you know, the combination of speed and skill, you know, on and off the ball. It was, you know, I think it's something that I also is also attracting, you know, these clubs overseas to get attracted to the South African players. You know, it's really a pity, you know, coming from my class and the class before me, you know, the class of your Cabo Zitas, you know, your Sibongile Kumalos, you know, if you think about how highly skillful those players were, you know, what they could do with the ball, you know, it was unbelievable. You know, you just, you know, you see these players play and you think, wow, these players, some of them even played with boys. You know, if you think about Kabuzita, she played, she was captain of Mamelodi Sundowns, playing with Butemba Mguni, and then, you know, back then, you know, she was really, you know, a highly skillful player, you know. So it's unfortunate that, you know, that time has really has gone past. Those kind of players, we no longer have them, but we have a different kind of player, you know, in the likes of Thembi Kgatlana, you know, in the likes of your Jermaine Soposino. It's different. They're not as highly skillful as, your Kabuzitas, but they've got something different, you know, they've got something different and it's unique. If you look, you know, if you are from Europe or wherever, you know, it's unique compared to other players, what they have. But we as former players, we're really excited that the doors have really opened up for our players, and more doors can open if Banyana Banyana keep doing the things that they're doing, and they also qualify for, you know, the 2023 FIFA World Cup in Australia, New Zealand. You know, they keep pushing, you know, those boundaries and qualifying for major international competitions. It's key, you know, and you know, COSAFA obviously, you know, it's also important. You know, I think for me, COSAFA, it's more about giving exposure to the other players that don't normally make Banyana Banyana. You know, I always said, you know, if Desiree wants to experiment, COSAFA for me is where she can bring up the under 20 players, you know, or those ones that, you know, are playing in the Sasso League, but they never really get the chance to play for Banyana. And she never knew what to do with them. That's where she can put them so that people can see them. You know, we see that COSAFA now is getting a lot of coverage. You know, yes, Kwese did go down and they didn't cover the last COSAFA tournament, you know, and it was really unfortunate because under 17 COSAFA, under 20 COSAFA as well, those competitions did come through, showing the kind of talent that we have at junior level. You know, but now there's coverage. At least they came and brought, you know, an online channel where people can see, you know, what the players are capable of. So there's many avenues open up for where the scouts, whether you're sitting in Europe, you're sitting in Asia, or you're sitting in US, you know, there's avenues where scouts or the teams can see what the players are capable of before, you know, they go forward and, you know, ask an agent or a player if they would be interested in their services. So, you know, and so the more media exposure the players get, you know, the more chances they're going to get, you know, not only themselves, but the other players coming, the more opportunities they will get to get contracts overseas here and, you know, get to those, you know, basically put bread on their tables, because, you know, in Africa, there are no professional leagues that can, you know, give the players can use to make a livelihood out of. So they look towards Europe to get contracts and, you know, use their talents to make money.
See, let us bring you into this conversation just to pick up from what Sis Lydia is saying in regards to, you know, the girls earning a living, and these many movements that we have seen, and now in a lot of the African women's leagues are presumed to be amateur, including the newest one in South Africa, the SNWL. Do you think that this then can push, you know, administrators in Africa to do better in terms of getting sponsorships for the leagues that are there already, you know, to sort of, you know, make it match up with where the boys are at in terms of making sure that the girls, they earn money for their labor?
Afternoon, guys. Firstly, I'd like to apologize for joining you guys a bit late. I was just tied up elsewhere. But on that matter, my issue at the moment is that women's football is, number one, not marketed as well as men's football. You'd find that senior women's football gets less attention as compared to junior men's competitions. So that whole mindset for me needs to change. I think once that changes, it will also lead to maybe better marketing of women's football. So when we start there by treating women's football or seeing women's football, senior women's football, as we do the men's senior football, things change. Because that will push CAF to find sponsorship and to market women's football better, which will make women's football in the continent much more attractive than it already is. When CAF takes that decision to treat women's football better, I think it will filter down to the member associations, because then they will also try to do better by their women's football. For an example, in South Africa, the SAFA National Women's League went on and the season finished without a single sponsor. That's not acceptable. Because SAFA kept on saying, yeah, we are in talks with a potential sponsor, but the whole season went and there was nothing. There was no feedback on to say, okay, fine, yes, we told you earlier that we're looking at sponsorship for this league, but these are the speed humps, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we are trying to maybe change direction on how to get a different sponsorship. That is what needs to change. For me, especially in South Africa, women's football is seen as an accessory. If it's there, it's okay. If it's not there, it's also okay. So that mindset needs to change at the association. And I feel that once we get people, not just women only, people who are really for growing women's football into the association, that's only when things will change. Because at the moment, like I'm saying, women's football is seen as an accessory. Whoever the people who are in power right now don't really are not seen as they care for women's football in the country. For an example, okay, at the moment, the country, we're busy talking about when is the PSL season going to resume. But there's nothing on the SAFA Women's National League, which is a baby that belongs to SAFA. SAFA have this one product that they have to deal with, but they're not doing anything. They're not even saying anything.
They're not proactive about it.
They were not even communicating whether when the winners, Sundowns, would get their prize money. Currently, I'm not even sure that they already have their prize money. I know that the CEO said last week that Sundowns has been paid. I need to verify that because I don't think it's been done yet. So my issue is, let's get people who are really for women's football in those decision-making positions. Even at CAF, it really doesn't make sense to me why you would want to cancel the AWC. Number one, this year was the first year since, an added competition, because from this year it was supposed to be 12 participants instead of 8. Now you want to have this new product on the year that we are supposed to be qualifying for the World Cup. One, that means teams who haven't played in continental competition of any sort, they will have to wait until 2022 to see if they can participate. For me, that's a really poor decision. That's all I can say for now. We need to.
I hear you, yes, and you're right to say that. Fine, SAFA is not proactive in terms of a lot of issues. You know what I mean? They have to be asked, what about this? What about the SNWL? And even the issues of saying, okay, there is R1 million which is going to be shared between the top 4 teams. There will be a mini ceremony. There are not even dates, that are put up onto that. But I hear your point, Busi. Sam, just to bring you in back, and we getting on Busi's point, just capturing on Busi's point that the cancellation of next year, basically, of international football for women's football, is it going to affect, also transfers, future transfers? And also just to ask you, as someone who has been here longer as well, that why does it seem that a lot of these contracts for the girls overseas are much shorter? You know what I mean? They'll spend a year or a couple of months here and then move on and whatnot. Only a couple of cases that you'd see a girl has been somewhere for at least longer than 1 year.
Well. This has been on my mind for a while too. But I've also trying to talk through a lot of players who, based on recommendations to European coaches, I've always been on the front line that players who are also going to be getting that job, probably getting a contract, should definitely look at securing a long-term deal. But again, a lot of things are involved. Basically, one, the teams they are going to is one thing. A lot of teams are only looking at working with you on a short time, especially on the interest of their coaches. When they sign you, it's either they want you for a season, and basically for that season is to assess you. Do you meet the standard? And this is basically what a lot of clubs, especially in Spain, Spain is just opening up now to foreign players, and it's growing, it's fast growing, but it hasn't been too long because I remember in 2017, Francis Caldega became possibly the first player from Africa, not the first African in Spain, but the first player to move to Spain from Nigeria rather. But although we already had the likes of Jade Boho, but she was born in Spain, so you really can't call her an Equatorial Guinea person. But anyway, she came to represent Equatorial Guinea later after playing for Spain at the youth level. So at this point, a lot of those clubs are opening up, unlike you have in Sweden, in Norway, where practically a team, knowing what you've achieved, knowing what your credentials are, we want to sign you for 2 years. And again, on the side of, on the other hand, we look at also the agents involved and agencies. A lot of agents too, as much as you know, signing a contract, a partnership contract with a player based on FIFA rules doesn't last beyond 2 years. It is renewable, but doesn't last beyond 2 years. And for that, a lot of agents who are transferring players won't consider the timing of your movements. If you're leaving for Europe, basically, possibly in December or September, possibly in the summer, they will hope that your contracts, they want to do you 6 months based on the agent's interest. And contracts that are signed, from my assessment, contracts that are signed in January, which are probably either a year or 6 months to end in June, are basically contracts that are more like you going there as a rescue mission for the team, because most of the teams are possibly in their mid-seasons, either in Spain, in France, they are possibly in their mid-seasons, and they need players urgently to help them avoid relegating, or to help them fight for a better position, to finish in a better position at the end of the season. So the club tend to pay more on terms of wages, because you even get add-on on some situations, some contracts I've been a bit aware of. And at that, agents with them to sign a few months contracts, a 6-month contract, so to say, to end possibly in June from January, before they now think your performance, they now assess your performance at that club level. If you're good enough, you easily get an improved new deal. And the improved new deal, depending on the age too, the age also comes to play. An improved new deal, either 2 years or either a year. So your age will also count. To get 2 years, it depends on your age and depends on your performance. So you could see, like in Spain now, Jade Boho just signed a new 2-year deal with Logroño, and she was there just in 2019 and had a year deal, which was supposed to expire this summer in June. So having expired, they had to renew. And based on her performance, scoring 12 goals, you know, in 21 games, you know, that is huge, despite she's 33. So, you know, looking at that, you know, the club feel, wow, she's a Spaniard by birth. So, well, this is somebody we can give wholly 2 years. So, cool. So that's the interest of the club. But initially, they knew her performance level, they knew her quality, but they had to give her 1 year initially. So you could possibly dissipate that. The same for a lot of other players. And some players, it's just the decision of their agents. It's also a very good business for the agency and for the agents. The player as well enjoys a bit of this. And this is why I've always raised questions. I also saw recently, I got in little arguments with Barbara, like, Barbara, you just signed a 3-year deal with your club last summer, and you're leaving in January, you know? And whatever club, the Chinese club is definitely going to pay your buyout clause. I have no idea what that clause is, but I know it's definitely nothing less than 50,000 euros. Well, so, and, you know, for that to have happened, the club paid the buyout clause, and in that process, they could secure services after signing a new deal. So it's a good business for Logroño and also the Chinese club. But for her, it definitely will have an effect on her personal pay, because there's no way the club in China will be paying your buyout clause and also pay you heavily. But what for the player, the money is good. So so when the player says the money is good, you know, you definitely have no powers to. So well, and you definitely have to respect that. So and that's it. And gladly she has traveled to China, and I think they will be starting the Chinese Women's Super League Cup next month, early, I think on 10. So that's just a few examples. And when you do well, it's easy. Clubs will be keen to tie you down. She only went there, I think, for a 6-month or 1-year contract in 2018. And after that contract, they gave her 3 good years. 3 good years. She was 18 then, so you can imagine what prospects she has, and why they had to tie her on such a long-term deal. Do you understand? So that happens. But I think on the agent front, agents see that as also a very quick business. It's also good for the player too, but it's also good monetarily for the player. But for the career of the player, it's terrible. It's unadvisable for a player below the age of 25, 27. You signing a 6 months, 1 year deal really doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense, because it's good you have a long-term deal, at least 2 years, renewable, and now look at least help you settle down at a club, help you build yourself and improve. And like you saw with Linda, I think she got a good deal. And for players under the management where you have Linda, I think I do know who managed them, and a lot of them gets at least 18 months contract. And for a few of them, I do know. Tembe's case was special. Benfica parted ways, and I think probably that was included in the clause. And again, they have a lot of they have a lot to do between them. They still have a lot to sort out between them. I just can't say all this. For the fact, the little I know there is a lot to sort out between the club and also the agents and the player. So this. They had to part ways. It wasn't as if it was more like a force majeure situation. And for this to have happened, definitely, you understand that it was unexpected. It was unexpected. And these were fallouts from the COVID pandemic. A lot of teams are cutting costs in Portugal. Braga practically sent away, more than 18, close to 11, more than 12 players, because I know I know 3 players from Africa who I relate to directly, even those born in Africa or those who are not, especially those in America. All of them, I do communicate with all of them very well. And, they do open up, this is it, and they had to leave. Well, their contract did expire, but, a lot were going down south with the club and they had to leave. And so it's the same situation with a lot of players that left the club in Braga, and, such a mass exodus. Benfica, it's a bit better. Not much player left, but they're also having serious financial situation. And why Benfica can't lose a lot of players, because they will be competing in the Champions League. So these things had to do with the clubs. The clubs, if they are not willing to keep you further. I also know of a player too in Madrid. They had to part ways. She signed an 18-year contract for Catalana. I think she signed 2.5 years with Benfica that before they had to part ways. So, when even all these are not spelled out, well, one has to dig deep and know better. So it doesn't look like a short-term contract. Some of these things happen, force majeure, player had to leave, and some players, so you go into a club in mid-seasons, like in Spain, if you're going to a Spanish team in the mid-season, it's definitely has to be a short-term contract, definitely, especially when you're almost 30 or over 30. You can't get a long-term deal. This I know. And for some players, I was pretty much involved in their move. I know this too well, especially liaising with their potential club and talking with some of the coaches and administrators. I'm aware of all this. And same time, especially in this second division, it depends on the player, depends on the agents. If the player is okay, why not? You want to stay as long as you wish. And so for a player who is moving to such terrain, you could also see the case of Asisa Tushuala. You remember pretty well when she moved from China. Well, it was initially agreed on a loan deal before her performance earned her a long-term deal, 3 years. So you could imagine her age advantage and everything. So these things are key. Well, I'm happy for the movement of some of our South African players. And for me, it's just a pathway to more doors opening, because it's just quite not easy. You having players moved out, and I think it's just like Lydia said. It's just the sacrifices
Yeah.
the former players have made, and at least the growing visibility the country has enjoyed in terms of women's football. Thanks to you all. I think these are key factors. Back in the days too, when I sleep all the nights, assistant to Strala, the under 20 teams, practically all of them are abroad now, and it's a shame we had a gap, having much players moving abroad, not just moving around, but moving to good clubs, So not just going to play in Australia League, and it's been a long time we have players playing in prominent league where you win the league, So it's just not easy when you're in league that could compete, league that could challenge for trophies. So it's a bit of turning points. It's a bit of gap that we need to close. But again, I'm happy that yes, the game is growing, is improving, and on the terms of contract, I think it's business. Like, you must understand, it's business, and players know best what they want. So I as much as we get to criticize this, we understand what the disadvantages and the advantages are, and essentially for players who all like Nigeria, which we are a bit disadvantaged on areas of getting visas and what have you. Players are very keen. Most of them want to move abroad and stay put, and that's why they begin to sign long-term contracts. And for some of them who are already tied to a country, possibly a lot of them played in Sweden, they already secured a stay. Majority of them already secured a stay. Most of them are staying there for a reason or the other. So it's for some business, for some different reasons.
I'm going to cut you because we were also chasing time. We're already in extra time and whatnot, but you are a well of knowledge, and I think like you're giving us nice exclusives there, some breaking stories and whatnot. And I also feel like we are going to need part 2 just to speak specifically about the contracts on this matter. But just to pick up on this matter, just to go back to Lydia, as a parting shot also, the introduction of the African Champions League, the Women's African Champions League is coming up, and picking up on the issue of agents from Sam as well, as your parting shot, Lydia, the transparency in which agents deal with this thing, is it going to assist moving forward, and also this introduction of the African Champions League in the women's side, as your parting shot?
Look, it's good that CAF has introduced the African Women's Championship, but for me, I'm also worried that we don't have, although it's starting next year, 2021, we don't have much information on that. So until CAF gives us concrete things, concrete logistics that we're going to work with, dates, who's going to be involved in everything, who's going to take charge of that whole competition. Can I sleep better at night knowing that our girls have got a competition that they're going to be, competing in, and they're not going to be last minute excuses to say, it's not going to happen because of ABC, XYZ, right now we are disappointed that there's no 2020 African Women's AFCON, although they postponed the men, but the women's one was cancelled completely. So until they give us, concrete information to work with, will I be satisfied? And then yes, it's important for agents, to tell us, who are they working with, and how much. We never really know how much the players are really making out of some of these deals, so that we can see that it's really fair for them. Are the players, really getting paid for what they're worth, or are they being exploited? I know that dealing with women on this level, it's kind of newish to them. We always dealt with agents dealing with men footballers, going to Europe and everything, but for the women it was not. In my time there was no such thing, but now we need to know. Let's be upfront about how much someone is getting, signing on fee, how much are they getting paid, so that the players also, they know when they go to Europe, is this person who's luring me to a contract overseas, are they really offering me what I'm worth? And everyone can compare and see that, this is really worth it, and there's no exploitation whatsoever when it comes to that, because, we as Africans, we've been exploited a lot, not only in football, but other areas as well. So to limit the exploitation of our footballers, I think transparency is key going forward. Like I said, it's great that you're going to have a new competition on the continent, giving other players, a chance to also compete, that some of these players can never make Banyana or the Super Falcons. And they will get a stage where they can be seen by the scouts as well. but it's important that we know what is going on. I mean, the strategy didn't really tell us what we really wanted to know, but I think KEF might just be forward with us and just put the information on the table so that everyone can see it, what is available there, when are we going to be competing in these competitions. Rather put a date, and then if nothing works out, you can postpone it. But if you're not saying anything, we don't know, is it really going to happen or not? So I'm really worried about that.
Busi, your parting shot from this conversation, I know that from a reporting perspective also, this also opened doors, you know, for African girls, not just South African girls to get to report on an international level. Just wrapping up from your parting shot on this in connection with reporting.
Firstly, I'd like to say that skills makes very important points. Transparency. CAF lacks transparency. We don't know what's happening. They just say things and just leave them in the air. Like currently, we don't know how the Champions League is gonna work. How many teams? How long will it last? You know, the whole structure of the competition, we don't know. So we are just sitting here hoping that CAF will really come through this time. So that needs to change. Number two, for me, in terms of reporting, I think, especially if the Champions League does get broadcasted, it will make things so much easier for us reporters to know more about players from other countries, because sometimes we don't get to see them play. When a link is out, when they're playing, you know, we sort of get that chance to watch. But unfortunately, we know with data issues in the country, but also in the continent as largely, sometimes you're not fortunate enough to see those matches. So if they do get a broadcast deal and we get to watch our players on television, it will make things much more easier for us to report about them, which will also give them much more exposure that is needed in them, you know, to market them rather, you know, to other countries where they can get paid for the service that they offer.
Your parting short in terms of the contracts. I know you have a lot of information to give us, and I really appreciate it. Your parting short in terms of then what this is going to do. I mean, as we started the conversation in the beginning, we saw that there is a South African 11 already that we speak of that is overseas. What does that then, your parting shot in terms of what it's going to do for the game on the African continent, like for the women's game on the African continent?
Yeah, well, I think that's already is in progress. We know we've not been short of talent as a continent. The only challenge we've been very short of is leadership and investment in the women's game, and that's hopefully that obviously has limited the opportunities, limited the chances we have both on the continent and also on the global scene, and that hugely has impacted the quality of exposure the game and the girls have gotten, and that we hope could change for better based on the thoughts of everyone, that have come out a bit clearer on their plans and see how well things are executed, not just on the administrative fronts, but on the area of competition and also rewards for various events that a lot of teams will be participating in, and also showing to us how well and their strategy to the social impacts we'll be expecting the game will enjoy, not just what we've been seeing recently. But well, there's a lot of improvements social media wise, but and also behind the scenes from CAF. But same time, we need a lot to know. We need to know a lot more than what we've seen already, because time is just not our friends. We are working behind our time, and I believe that should be what it should be for our women's football in Africa. And for the players, I think we just hope the players get more education at various levels to know how better to manage themselves. You can't force a player on what to do and not. And matters of deals are very obviously personal, especially when it comes to contracts. You run to the those that manage the TCMS. Mostly players from Africa, and also the same with other continents, prefer their deals being undisclosed. And, you know, that happens with the men too. So for women, it's not really something attractive like we always think. But again, it's something better than what we get anywhere around the continent when you move abroad. Except for those who go to obscure league, who possibly just want to move out. And for me, it's really sad, but well, people just want to play abroad and you can't stop them from achieving their dream. So, well, I think that's it is about that.
Ladies and gents, thank you so much. This was a very first episode of Team Talk of Front Runner podcast. The ladies' football games and women's sport generally cannot be left behind in terms of everything. We're moving into a digital space in terms of reporting and everything. So I sort of kind of had to sit on the editors of Front Run to say, we're going to create a podcast that is going to specifically speak to women's sports. And definitely because football is primary and it's bigger, you know, there's a bigger participation as well. So that's where we started. Thank you so much.